Hi everyone, can't believe that we are approaching the end of the semester. I'm so excited to present online. So for the final project, I chose to talk about performance issues on keyboard and focus on harpsichord and clavichord, which were the Baroque versions of my instrument piano. So now I'm going to cover my image so that you can see the PowerPoint. To receive a relatively comprehensive understanding and to explore some typical issues, it is worth to go back a little bit to learn the background of the old instruments in Baroque era as well as how they worked technically. Among the most well-known instruments during that time were harpsichord and clavichord, and of course there are some other instruments at the same time. For example, the lute harpsichord, pedal harpsichord, and clavichord, as well as fortepiano. Now let's focus on harpsichord and clavichord. Harpsichord is a plunked string instrument which can be traced back to the Middle Ages. During Renaissance, harpsichord had a development with adding a second keyboard on it, as we can see in the picture on the left. I'm not going to spend much time on technical explanation. What is more important is that the devices made this instrument not very sensitive by touching, which means that striking the keys, whether hard or gently, produces almost the same dynamic level. So the musical expressiveness depend mostly on timing, articulation, ornaments, which are helpful in creating different dynamics. The clavichord had a similar history background with harpsichord. It's an instrument of striking strings by tangent. The biggest difference in terms of musical expression is that clavichord can produce a kind of relatively wide range of dynamics. So with those information in mind, now let's move on to some typical performance practice issues. I put fingering at the first because I think in the process, while I'm learning a new piece from Baroque period, mostly Bach, so except for the notes, I will decide what fingering I will use in both hands, because I think a better fingering will improve the fluency when playing the piece, especially for multiple voices, for fugue. And I don't want to twist my fingers. Also, a good range of fingering will help me to play faster if it's needed, and as well as help me to memorize the piece. And there are several basic principles, include firstly, like what we're doing now, to use our thumbs for crossing notes, but remember to avoid using thumb under the little finger or crossing the second finger over the third finger, or vice versa. And the biggest difference from nowadays is what J.S. Bach indicated, which is for commonly for scalar passages, the right hand using 3-4-3-4 ascending and 3-2-3-2 descending. Also, as his son C.P.E. Bach illustrated, using single finger to play repeated notes in a moderate speed and alternating fingers for fast repetitions. And there are also many other principles. I listed a couple of them. Next one, the ornaments, my favorite one. I bet that you all know that there's a famous table written by Bach for the use of ornaments. There's so many types, but what we should know is why the ornaments exist. Due to the limitation of harpsichord and clavichord, performers cannot really play a legato melody or sustain the notes for a long time, as C.P.E. Bach wrote in his treatise that the primary aim of all embellishments is to connect notes, which I totally agree. So the ornaments should match the length of principal notes and the tempo, the character, of course, the effect of the piece. For example, the beginning of BWV BWV 861 in G minor from Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, which is a long note with a sign of a trio. Remember that it starts on the beat. That's the basic rule, but how to play it and with what tempo we have the right to interpret with our preferences, as long as it matches the overall character of this piece. This is what was written on score, but we can still find some recordings play it differently. Okay, the last point I would like to introduce is the rhythm. I would argue that playing works from Baroque period is not like a robot with a strictly metronome and play exactly as what was written in the score, because from my perspective, rhythm is one of the most important approach of expression, especially on harpsichord. This principle could apply to three aspects. The first one is the way of playing dotted notes. Sometimes the rhythm was written in an eighth note with a dotted 16th note, but it may actually be played as over dotted notes, as you can see on the PowerPoint. The typical example could be the fugue of Bach's BWV 850 in Well-Tempered Clavier. The second one is known as notes inégales, which is playing certain successions of the same notes with uneven rhythm, especially applied to eighth notes. Also, as I posted in my PowerPoint, the last one is rubato, or I would like to use the term that we've learned this semester is rhythmic flexibility. It is often used on the first note of a scalar rhymes. We can play it by stretching or pulling the note a little bit to emphasize it in order to shape the phrase. So it sounds like there are still many performance issues that are interesting, but I think I have to end here because of the time limitation, and I really wish that we could have more time to explore them together and may play the music together in the near future. Hope you all have a wonderful summer break. Bye.